8. Fish-human hybrid. In Malaysia, in December of 2017, a fisherman allegedly reeled in a creature that resembled a reverse mermaid, with the head and tail of a fish and the torso of a woman. Legends of mermaids have been around for centuries. The earliest account of these mythical creatures comes from ancient Syria, when the goddess Atargatis allegedly jumped into a lake and took the form of a fish. However, the gods would not allow Atargatis to give up her remarkable beauty, so they only turned the bottom half of her body into a fish. Oddly enough, even Christopher Columbus himself claimed to have witnessed these sea creatures with his own eyes while sailing near what we now know as the Dominican Republic. In January of 1493, the explorer saw 3 mermaids, and he described them as not half as beautiful as they're painted. However, this sighting was later debunked, and what he really saw was manatees. So, do mermaids really exist, or were they just made up from the imagination of dehydrated, loopy sailors? The answer is, nobody really knows for sure. However, the mysterious pictures of the creature supposedly caught by a Malaysian fisherman in 2017 really got people wondering. Apparently, the fish girl had the womb of a woman, 4 breasts, and the tail of a mermaid. The creature's hands were tied behind its back, and its belly was distended as if it were pregnant. While many believed this was actual evidence of the mythical mermaid, some began to try and find other explanations as to what it could possibly be. As you already know, things aren't always as they seem, and after a reverse image search was done on the photo of the creature, people were able to figure out that this wasn't a real mermaid at all. They found out that the pictures that were circulating of this grotesque fish girl actually came from a group of foreign artists. The reverse mermaid was never real to begin with, and instead it was nothing more than a hoax created by talented animatronic artists. 7. Dobby the House Elf. In Colorado Springs in early 2019, Vivian Gomez's security camera captured bizarre footage of a strange creature walking through her driveway in the middle of the night. The creature has since been nicknamed Dobby the House Elf because it closely resembles the Harry Potter character. It's short in height, likely only 4.5 to 5 feet tall, and has skinny, longer than average limbs for its size. It also appears to have dangly ears that flap over each side of its face, which is another reason why it's being compared to the fictional elf. It seems to be wearing shorts, and it has flip-flops on its feet that can be heard throughout the video hitting the pavement, a very distinct sound. Then, almost immediately after the creature enters the frame of the camera, the video ends. Gomez has adamantly denied falsifying the video or using Photoshop of any kind, but there is a lot of speculation surrounding her claim. For one, if she really caught something so crazy on video, why would she not post the full unedited version of it? It cuts off shortly after it starts, and it's only 10 seconds total. At first, Gomez claimed that she didn't know why the camera turned off, but then she later changed her story and said that her camera only goes for 10 seconds at a time. However, that's not typically how motion-activated cameras work. They usually continue to record until the object in motion is out of the frame completely, but that doesn't seem to be the case in this instance. Some have theorized that her son could be the one in the video, as a small child would be the only explanation for the short stature of the creature. But Gomez has denied this as well, and says she would never allow her son to be outside in the dark so late at night by himself. Strangely enough, this video is still considered to be 100% real, and no other reasonable explanation has been proposed to prove it otherwise. To this day, nobody knows for sure what the creature in the video really is, or whether or not it was just some goofy kid messing around. 6. Opa fish. A man from the Star Monica village in Venezuela reeled in a huge opa fish in August of 2020 after shockwaves from an earthquake forced it to swim closer to the surface. The fisherman, by the name of Armando Amos, caught the giant fish with only a hook and a line. The opa is a warm-blooded fish and is known to be a high-performance predator and can swim very fast and has incredible vision. It's typically found in deep waters between 50 and 500 meters, but a strong magnitude 6.6 earthquake apparently brought it closer to the shore and is the reason Amos was able to hook it. The opa that was caught by the fisherman was apparently 143 pounds and strangely resembles a monstrous goldfish. It has pointy, orangish red fins and its body is completely covered in rough silver scales. However, this catch is hardly the biggest of the species ever captured. In October of 1998, a group of men caught 3 huge oppers off the coast of San Luis Obispo in central California. Joe Ludlow, Travis Zavala, and Armando Castillo all miraculously caught these sea beasts from aboard the XL, which is a long-range luxury sports fishing boat. All of their catches were extremely large, but Ludlow's fish was by far the most gigantic. Ludlow still currently holds the world record from the International Game Fish Association for the biggest opar ever caught, at a whopping 181 pounds. 5. Real-life fairy. In August 2020, a Twitter user by the name BNITAAPLEB_M posted a video that was captured by their Ring doorbell camera that seems to show a small fairy-like figure flying in front of it. When you think of a fairy, you most likely conjure up images of Tinkerbell from Disney's Peter Pan movie, but this is an actual video that was caught by complete accident. What it shows is an extremely small creature, basically the size of a moth, fluttering near the home's camera for not more than a few seconds. It has a dull glow around it which makes it appear even more magical. You can see the specks of dust that surround the creature, and it looks extremely realistic. It even has human-like arms and legs, just like the descriptions of fairies from storybooks. This one has not yet been proven to be real or fake, but it makes you wonder if mythical creatures could really still live on our planet today. 4. Monster shrimp. Shrimp is a delicious and popular crustacean to eat, and is even considered a delicacy by some people, but most of the time they're relatively small in size. They're usually only a few inches in length and are a pinkish-white color. It might be a little alarming to come across a shrimp that is double its average size, but what about a shrimp that is 18 inches and brown in color? Interestingly, a crustacean of this size was captured by a fisherman named Steve Bargeron from a dock in Fort Pierce, Florida in September of 2014. The sea creature is believed to be a mantis shrimp, and is actually not related to shrimp in the slightest. This species can apparently attack their prey at speeds of up to 50 miles per hour, and they're capable of breaking through the shells of their unsuspecting victims. Mantis shrimp in captivity have been known to break through the glass of their aquariums with their powerful claws, which make them honestly terrifying. If you're ever swimming in the ocean and you see one of these creatures coming at you, it would probably be wise to get as far away from that thing as possible. 3. Alien-like sea monster. A creature that looks like something out of this world was captured by a man on the island of Pulau Ubin in Singapore in October of 2014. The 53-year-old man named Ramlan Syme thought he pulled up seaweed from the bottom of the water, since there is a lot of stuff in the area, but when he pulled it onto his boat, the creature began moving. He described it as moving like an alien, and he said he was completely perplexed by what it caught. The terrifying sea monster looked as though it had at least 100 independently moving tentacles covering its entire body. When he reeled it in, all of the creature's arms started waving around, curling and flopping like something Mr. Syme had never seen before. However, after the video of this strange encounter began circulating online, marine experts were quickly able to identify this creature as a basket star. If you've never heard of a basket star before, you're not alone. These creatures are hardly ever talked about, mostly due to their deep-sea environment. However, apparently they can sometimes be seen at night near tropical reefs in shallow water. This species is an order of brittle stars and are distant relatives to the better-known starfish. The creatures start out with 5 initial arms, and then from then smaller appendages start to sprout up over time. Basket stars are quite unique. They don't have any blood, and instead they achieve gas exchange using their water vascular system. Their arms can grow up to 27.5 inches in length, and they typically have a diameter of about 5.5 inches. People don't typically catch these creatures when they're fishing, and Mr. Syme was extremely lucky to see one of these with his own eyes. 2. Zuo Maru carcass. In 1977, off the coast of New Zealand, a Japanese fishing trawler by the name of Zuo Maru reeled in the bizarre remains of a sea serpent that closely resembled the prehistoric plesiosaur. A plesiosaur is considered to be an extinct Mesozoic marine reptile that lived during the early Jurassic period. It had a long neck similar to that of a giraffe, a large turtle-like body, a short stubby tail, and 2 sets of elongated paddles on either side of its body. They were said to have gone extinct roughly 65 million years ago, but the crew on board the Zuo Maru believed that they had hooked the remains of one of these creatures. On April 25th, they'd been sailing east of Christchurch, New Zealand, when they caught the alleged plesiosaur. The giant sea monster was nicknamed Nessie by the crew, and measurements and samples were taken from the skeleton, fins, and skin of the creature. However, after some tests were completed, the captain of the ship, Akira Tanaka, made the decision to dump the carcass back into the ocean to avoid spoiling the caught fish. However, the discovery started an intense plesiosaur craze in Japan, and Zuo Maru Shipping Company quickly ordered all of its boats to relocate the lost corpse. Sadly, these ships were unsuccessful in finding the creature the second time, but it apparently weighed 3,968 pounds and was roughly 33 feet in length. The neck alone on the sea monster was 5 feet long, but there were no internal organs that remained on the carcass. Tokio Shikama, a professor from Yokohama National University, was also convinced that the creature was a plesiosaur. But a Swedish scientist by the name of Persson disagreed and said that typically when a large dead marine creature is inspected closely, it almost always turns out to be some type of decomposed shark. In this case, Persson was right, and after further tests were done to the samples collected from the corpse, it was identified as the remains of a basking shark, or another closely related species. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear even more stories, stay tuned for some extra content that you might have missed. 1. Baby dragon. In April of 2022, a Russian fisherman caught a bizarre sea creature in the Norwegian Sea, and people are calling it a baby dragon. Deep-sea fisherman Roman Fedortsov has found a lot of strange life from the depths of the ocean, but this one definitely stands out. After he reeled in this creature, he posted a picture of it on the internet and people completely lost their minds. One comment said, "It looks like a newly hatched dragon," and by the looks of it, we can understand why. The strange fish is not much longer than the man's hand, but has a long, snake-like tail and big oval-shaped eyes. It has a rounded snout and 2 wing-like fins protruding out from each side of its neck. The creature is pinkish in color and could easily pass as a baby dragon. But sadly, scientists have identified this animal as nothing more than a chimera or ghost shark. These fish typically live at a depth of 8,500 feet, but some of them have been found in more shallow waters at only 660 feet. Adult chimeras can grow up to 5 feet in length, so the one that was captured by Fedortsov is definitely a baby, but not even close to a dragon.
8. Ancient coin. We've all heard about those guys with metal detectors that walk around giant fields or the beach trying to find treasures. And most of the time, on TV especially, they aren't all that lucky. Some of them will wander around for hours on end and only have pocket change to show for it. But the reason they continue to do so is because it has worked out for a few detector enthusiasts. It worked out big time. Just like it did for one New England man that had been waiting years for his chance in the sun. The man in question is Jim Bailey, just your average history buff. But what he found was anything but average. While scavenging with his metal detector in Rhode Island, Jim came across a centuries-old coin that was first minted in Yemen back in 1693. But that's not the coolest part about this find. This mystery coin could be the key to unlocking a much larger historical mystery. It all starts with an old English pirate named Captain Henry Every that rose to fame after pillaging a ship full of Muslim pilgrims. They were originally heading towards India from Mecca before they were stopped by the crew. The pirate got away with the crime by pretending to be a slave trader. Not only were there people on the ship Henry stopped, there were millions upon millions of dollars worth of gold and silver coins. But Captain Every and his crew seemed to vanish into thin air after the massive find. The entire world was looking for them, but no one came forward. The coin Jim found could very well be the hint historians were looking for. Since he found it in Rhode Island, it might mean the pirate crew escaped to the old colonial American colonies. Other coins from Yemen have been popping up and discovered all over New England, leading us to think Every posed as a slave trader to lead a new life in the colonies, an almost perfect crime. But as the saying goes, time will tell. And it surely did in Captain Henry's case. 7. cash box. Imagine finding hidden treasure in your very own home. Well, that's exactly what happened for one Massachusetts woman thanks to the help of amateur treasure hunter Keith Will. It all started when the woman sought after Keith's help after hearing rumors of her aunt and uncle hiding things all over the house. The home was built in the 1950s, so that's plenty of time to rack up a few secrets. The woman is looking to sell it, though, so her family wants to make sure they found any hidden loot before putting it on the market. She said that up in the attic, the floorboards have scattered patterns of white X's and stars, which made her wonder if there was any merit to the symbols. But after searching for so long, the woman and her family gave up until they found Keith online. When he arrived at the home, it took him all but 50 minutes to find treasure. With his metal detector, he found a safe box full of $46,000 of vintage bills that had mint dates from the 1930s to 50s. The value today has multiplied many times to nearly $500,000. After the incredible discovery, Keith left all the money to the family, just happy he could help them get closure on the family secret. Although it's still a mystery who exactly hid the money in the first place. It was hidden close to the end of the Great Depression, so Keith believes that whoever did the hiding didn't have enough trust in the banks to store their cash there. But thanks to that distrust and forgetfulness, their ancestors are now rolling in the dough. 6. Mayan City. It's fascinating to think about the ancient civilizations that once existed on this world. The Mayans in particular achieved incredible feats of engineering, mathematics, astronomy, and more, without the assistance of our modern technology and ways of thinking. We have remnants of their great societies with us today, like those found at the Chichen Itza and Tulum historical sites. But could there be more we've yet to find? Could the great jungles of Mexico have covered up the remains of ancient cities? It's entirely possible, and thanks to the help of recent advancements, archaeologists have uncovered much larger portions of Mayan civilization in Tikal. The technology used for the discovery is called remote sensing, and with it, scientists are able to see just how much of the Mayan settlement has been hidden by jungle overgrowth. This knowledge has unlocked other secrets of how the Mayans used to live in their day-to-day life. In particular, the Tikal settlement was likely one of the largest cities in the world during its heyday. With a population nearing 1,000, a metric that seems small to today's standards but was quite large back then, the city had everything from servants to nobles to a mighty king. Although there is still much to learn, this new discovery only adds to the prowess the Mayan people held. So how did this mighty kingdom fall? Well, we're still trying to find out the exact reasons. Everything from conquistadors to natural disasters to the wrath of the gods could be the answer. But all these mysteries just add to the reason to push for further exploration. Have you ever seen ancient ruins? Let us know about your discoveries in the comments down below. If you like the video so far, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay updated on all our latest content. 5. Scottish Hoard. Picture this, you're a swordsman that lived over 3,000 years ago and you're coming home from a battle. You've been heavily wounded, but you can walk well enough to start making your way towards home. You're carrying a sword, along with some jewelry you were given as a memento from your family to remember them. But you're having trouble carrying everything, so you make the decision to drop everything. Now, flashing forward to modern day, a young man named Marius Stepien is roaming on a field in Scotland with his metal detector when he comes across a remarkable find, a stash of jewelry, old swords, horse harnesses, and more from the Bronze Age. While that first part might have been a dramatization, it's unknown how this massive treasure really wound up in the same spot, so it's very possible some swordsman could have dropped it off millennia ago. The discovery, made just 22 miles, 36 kilometers outside of Edinburgh, is one of the most significant finds in Scottish history. After telling his friends about the find, Marius got in touch with the government of Scotland themselves, the Treasure Trove Unit in particular. Yes, apparently that's a segment of the government there. They came to the field Marius made where the Hoard was located and camped out for 22 days. In this time, they found many more ancient artifacts, including rings, sword scabbard, the caps from axes, and more. It was so much that they decided to put it all, along with some of the dirt it was found in the National Museum's Collection Center. This discovery, made on August 10, 2020, was one of the largest made on Scottish soil. 4. The Lost Crown. The British monarch Henry VIII has an interesting past, especially when it comes to his love life. He's well known for having multiple wives, a taboo amongst the Church of England, and achieving this by beheading the ones who couldn't produce a male heir or the ones he claimed were treasonous. Henry is the father of 3 other rulers, Edward VI, Mary I, and the famed Queen Elizabeth. As king, Henry kept a lively court, but ultimately his lasting legacy would be seen as a killer. Despite this, he was still the ruler of one of the greatest empires on earth, which makes any possession of his extremely valuable, especially his crown. Yet another man with a metal detector, Kevin Duckett, was scouring a field near Northamptonshire, England, when he made the discovery of a lifetime. At first, he picked the object up thinking it was a piece of crumpled up foil or perhaps an old milk bottle, but he soon realized it was something way cooler. It was a statue made of solid gold. Standing at 2.5 inches, 6.3 centimeters tall, the figure is believed to have once been a part of King Henry VIII's crown. But how could a piece of his crown end up in some random field, you may ask? Well, in 1649, after Oliver Cromwell had attacked the monarchy, he ordered the crown, passed on through the royalty until it got to King Charles I, to be melted and turned into coins. Those orders weren't followed through, though. Seeing the value of the artifact they held, Oliver's underlings took it upon themselves to sell the 344 gems and stones on the crown as well as the other pieces, like the one Kevin found. Even still, it's a mystery how it ended up in this particular field. After researching his find, Kevin decided to turn the statue in, but not before visiting the Grand Hall. It was here that he saw an exact replica of his discovery on display. The piece of Henry's crown is now safely stored away in the British Museum, standing as a relic to the days of old and kings of the past. 3. Shipwrecked. Can you imagine hunting for treasure like Indiana Jones or Lara Croft, solving ancient mysteries and unlocking secrets that have been kept for centuries? Well, there's actually people out there who do it. While perhaps not as dangerous as the films would suggest, but just as rewarding. Dr. E. Lee Spence is an expert at finding treasures hidden under the surface of water. It's estimated that over the course of his career, he's uncovered millions of dollars worth of goods. One of his most noteworthy discoveries was finding the SS Georgiana. Originally intended to be used by the Confederate Army during the Civil War, the Georgiana never got her chance to fight in battle. She was supposed to be the strongest ship in the South's fleet once mounted with its powerful guns. The ship was built in Scotland, and while being transported to the South, it got caught up in a fight with the Union. Their navy put up a blockade outside of South Carolina and were able to damage the Georgiana significantly enough that its captain resorted to sinking it. And there it sat, underwater near the shores of Charleston for over 100 years until Dr. Lee found it. On board the boat were artifacts from the Civil War worth millions of dollars today. There were remnants of medicine and ammo, but there was a rumor of hundreds of pounds of gold being on board too. Sadly, these turned out to be false. But even still, the discovery is incredibly significant for historians and Civil War enthusiasts alike. 2. Fishing for gold. While out on a routine treasure hunting trip that usually turns out fruitless, Lee Weber was shocked at what he found. Using a fishing pole with a magnet on the end, he discovered over 46 safes buried beneath the sand in a river. It all started when his magnet hit something so big and heavy that he couldn't pull it out alone. Lee and his friends decided to hire a crane to help them. After seeing it was a massive safe, they did what any reasonable person would do in their situation. They broke it open. It took a while to get it unlocked, but once they did, they were speechless. The safe was full of incredibly valuable coins, some of them dating back as far as 1682, all the way to coins from Amsterdam in the early 1980s. After counting them all up, there were about 500 coins total, with their value ranging from $30 a piece to much higher. It turns out that the safe was stolen many years ago, and Lee just stumbled upon it. Who knows how the person who stole it managed to throw the whole safe into the river, but either way, we're sure Lee was happy they did. 1. SS Central America. One of the greatest discoveries in American history started with a shipwreck in the late 1850s. On August 24, 1857, life-changing news struck the North American continent when the prominent Ohio Life Insurance and Trust Company declared how it would no longer be sending out payments. The news sent the financial industry into chaos, leading some banks to band together to ship a large load of gold from Panama all the way to New York. The money was supposed to help the banks stand while the economy was in crisis, but the gold never made it to its destination. With hundreds of millions of cargo in today's standard on board, the SS Central America set out on its legendary journey. Unfortunately, disaster soon struck as a Category 2 hurricane hit the boat, damaging it beyond repair. As the boiler stopped working, the ship soon started to sink, taking the lives of over 425 crewmates in the process. Along with the deaths, it was thought that the gold on board was forever lost. But in 1988, it was found. Treasure hunter Tommy Gregory Thompson is credited with the discovery. He had become borderline obsessed with locating the famed ship. Using his knowledge as an ocean engineer, Tommy spent many years tracking the Central America's route and trying to pinpoint the spot it sank. And finally, after convincing investors to give him $12.5 million to fund the tech and equipment needed to locate and salvage the site, he quite literally struck gold. About 160 miles, 257 kilometers from the shores of South Carolina and over a mile under the sea, there the SS Central America sat, wasting away at the bottom of the ocean. Over the course of years, Tommy and his team spent time salvaging all the lost treasure. There were many different companies trying to claim the gold as theirs, but a judge filed in Tommy's favor. Even still, there are disputes about the gold, just showing that greed knows no bounds.
Number 10. A suspicious Russian. While partying in Thailand, a woman had her drink spiked and almost ended up in some serious hot water. And I'm not talking about the waters off Phuket. The victim in the situation was in Patong with her fiance's sister, and her cousin. It was the fall of 2016, when the world still made more sense than it does now. They had just finished dinner and were down on Bangla Road, where all the bars and clubs are. They stopped at a pub to have a drink, planning to have an early night because they wanted to go sightseeing the next day. But after they ordered their drinks, a Russian couple approached them. The Russian man was incredibly large. He looked like he worked out every single day. Still, they seemed pretty friendly, even offering to share some drinks with the woman and her friends. This is where things started to get hazy. While the woman went dancing, the Russian woman started touching her face, saying weird stuff, and then she finally convinced her to go across the road. She said that everybody else had left, so they needed to go and find them. At this point, the woman was feeling the severe impact of the spiked drink. Around this time, the woman's fiancé was looking desperately for her. He had gone to the hotel, he had raised a huge commotion, and he had even gotten the police involved already. He could not find her anywhere. When he went outside again to keep looking, he and the woman's cousin saw her being forced into a taxi. The woman had been drugged. The Russians had organized her to be kidnapped, and a local guy was driving the cab. It was a kidnapping scheme that went wrong at the very last minute. If the fiancé hadn't gotten there when he did, his bride-to-be would have been sold to human traffickers and probably never seen again. Number 9. Walking to her death. At the age of 20, Wesley Street was convicted for assaulting, violating, and murdering his childhood friend after what should have been a fun night out. Wesley had joined Keely Bunker to celebrate her birthday. They went partying with more of Keely's friends, including her best friend Monique Riggin. Everyone drank and partied. It was a big celebration, and then the night finally ended. On September 19th, The group took a taxi back to Monique's house. Wesley was then given the duty of walking Keely safely back to her house, but Keely never got back to her home. Sometime during the walk, Wesley took her into a dark city park, sexually assaulted her, and then murdered her. He left her body brutalized and went back to his own place, where he slept like a baby. In the end, Keely Bunker did not have a very good birthday. According to what was revealed during the court proceedings, Keely was choked to death. It's believed that Wesley put her in a chokehold for several minutes, long enough that she was probably already dead long before he even released her throat. He's now gotten a minimum of 29 years in jail. But here's where this will upset you even more. Wesley Street had already been busted 3 times for sexual assault and illegal sexual activity with a child, and yet he had never gotten in trouble for these crimes. This meant nobody knew about his grim past, so he was able to have all these friends who trusted him and didn't know he was a predator. Nothing being done about this guy sooner or later directly resulted in Keely Bunker being strangled to death in a park on her birthday. Number 8. Stabbed for a lighter. Jacob Billington was out visiting some friends in Birmingham. Jacob and his buddies decided they were going to go out for a night on the town. They hit up some pubs, they had some drinks, and everything was totally fine. In fact, even when the end of the night came around, nothing horrible had happened. Jacob and his friends were walking home when a stranger approached them. The stranger asked Jacob if he had a lighter handy, and when Jacob said he didn't, the man pulled out a knife and stabbed him to death. Nobody has any idea what the motive was for the terrifying crime. According to Jacob's surviving friend, Michael Callahan, it was a completely random attack. Michael had actually been stabbed by the crazed assailant as well, spending 187 days recovering from his injuries in the hospital. Michael said everything happened so fast that it's hard to really remember. He knows the stranger came and asked for a lighter. Jacob said they didn't have one, and suddenly there was a scream. Before he could really comprehend what was happening, Jacob was dead, and he was pawing at the cuts of his throat, where he too had been stabbed. The knife that stabbed Michael in the throat severed his carotid artery, his jugular vein, and caused him to suffer a stroke in the hospital. The surgeons had to perform an emergency craniectomy, in which a part of his skull was removed. He was then put into a coma for 3 weeks. Michael survived the incident. The same can't be said for Jacob. As for the attacker, the police tracked down Zephaniah McLeod, who was taken into custody and later pleaded guilty to murder. He gave no reason for the killing. Number 7. The Nightclub Fire. November 28, 1942 is the date of the worst nightclub disaster in American history. It happened in Boston, Massachusetts at the Coconut Grove nightclub. At the time, this was one of the most popular night spots in all of Boston, even attracting celebrity visitors and guys from the mafia. 1942 was the beginning of the war. November 28th was Thanksgiving weekend, and so the club was filled to double its legal capacity. The fire started when a busboy lit a match so that he could see better after a couple had removed a light bulb from the ceiling. This match accidentally ignited the draperies, which soon had the entire nightclub filled with smoke and flame. This was the 1940s, so you can be certain that pretty much no fire regulations were being observed. The place was extremely unsafe, with most of the exit doors locked to prevent unwanted guests from strolling into the building. Within minutes, the entire nightclub was consumed by fire. In total, 492 people were burned alive inside the Coconut Grove nightclub, making it the second deadliest building fire in the U.S., even to this day. Number 6. Kidnapped and killed. Chassie Correa was kidnapped and then killed after walking out of a Boston nightclub. She was there to celebrate her birthday with a group of friends. According to the authorities, Chassie disappeared after leaving with a man from the venue nightclub. The suspected kidnapper in this case is Louis D. Coleman III, 10 years older than Chassie. The police pulled this guy over and found a dead body inside his trunk, with that body belonging to Chassie Correa. The police actually stopped him in Delaware, quite a far distance from Boston. It's likely that he took Chassie from the club, did something to her, and then killed her, and was driving her body as far away as possible when he got caught. Poor Chassie had just wanted to celebrate her birthday. She was a mother of 2, and now her kids will be growing up without a mom. Last we heard in 2021, prosecutors were deciding whether Louis D. Coleman III will be getting a life sentence or the death penalty. What do you think the verdict should be in this case? Is this one of the times where the death penalty is completely fair? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Number 5. A dangerous date. After a night on the town, a man in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, got robbed by his date. The victim had been identified only as Eddie, and he said that he was out with friends along the Las Olas Boulevard when they stopped in a Piazza Italiana. When they went into the bar, Eddie noticed a pretty woman sitting near the counter. He went up and started talking. She informed him that she just came from Los Angeles and that she was staying with her 3 kids at a hotel. Eddie was getting extremely excited. After all, it wasn't like he had many opportunities to meet beautiful women while out at night with his friends. At some point, he went to the ATM to take out money, but that's when everything really went wrong. The pair went back to Eddie's place. She asked for a drink. Eddie made 2, and then he got dizzy. Really dizzy. He didn't lose consciousness, but he definitely felt disoriented. His date started getting erratic. She stormed out of his house, and Eddie fell asleep. When he got up, his phone was gone. So was his wallet, and so was $6,000 from his bank account. Luckily, Eddie believes the woman will soon be apprehended. When she took his phone, she took a picture of her face, and this picture is saved to Eddie's cloud, which he has access to through his iPad. He's now given the police her picture and hopes they catch her soon and throw her in jail. Number 4. Stranger in the park. A young teacher, just 28 years old, was killed after a night out with friends. Much like a lot of young women who are killed after a night out, it happened in a dark city park. Her body was discovered 24 hours later in the park in southeast London, still wearing her sparkly boots and a slip dress. The police have since caught the murderer and solved the case. They say that Sabina Nessa was walking a very short distance from her house to a local pub to meet up with some friends. But as she was walking, 36-year-old Kochi Salamaj struck Sabina in the back of the head, then carried away her unconscious body. We don't know exactly how she died, but the coroner did say that she suffered extreme violence. When her body was discovered the next day in the park, the murderer had covered it over with leaves. Number 3. The party bus. Driving around the city on a party bus seems like the best way to celebrate a birthday. Unfortunately for a group of teenagers, what should have been a great time on a party bus turned into a bloodbath. A gunman fired roughly 70 rounds through the windows of the party bus as it drove down an Oakland freeway. The shooting killed at least 2 teenagers and wounded 5 others. The attack started just after midnight. The bus at the time was carrying over a dozen women back to Oakland from where they had been partying in San Francisco. The group was celebrating the 21st birthday of one of their friends. But what's really crazy is that the shooters actually followed the bus all the way off the interstate and into the city streets. There were at least 2 shooters unloading bullets on the bus, following everywhere it went. Luckily, the bus driver knew where the nearest police station was and drove his bus straight into the police station parking lot. Driving to the cops was enough to get the shooters to stop following them, but even after a car chased a bus filled with teenagers through the city streets, literally killing people inside, the cops haven't made any arrests yet. They don't have any suspects. They haven't found the vehicle, and basically nothing is getting done to solve the case. Number 2. Off-duty date night. A couple of off-duty police officers had their date night ruined when the fast food restaurant they went to in Louisville was robbed. Police Detective Chase McKeown and his wife, Officer Nicole McKeown, were having a Saturday date night at the Raising Cane restaurant near their place. They were sitting there eating when a man wearing a mask and a black hood walked inside the fried chicken restaurant, pulled out a gun, and tried to rob the place. First of all, who in their right mind tries to rob a chicken restaurant? What would you get away with? Maybe $40? In any case, the robbery went anyway. The cop couple stood up at the same time with their weapons drawn, ordering the robber to put his gun down. The criminal tried to run away, but the couple chased him down no problem and arrested him there in downtown Louisville with the help from the local cops. And number 1, sold as slaves. Elia Beltran and her friend were walking out of Club Rio early on a Tuesday morning when they were both abducted. Out of all places, this happened in Texas, in West Oak Cliff. The kidnappers stole the 2 young girls at gunpoint, kept them prisoner inside their own 1997 Ford Explorer, and drove them around town, deciding what he was going to do with them. He eventually let one of the girls escape, Carla. He only wanted Elia, and with the other girl gone, he then met up with a trio of hardened criminals. The kidnapper then tried to sell the young girl to these criminals as a human slave. With a gun put against her head, these people explained that she was going to be a prostitute, working for them and doing whatever they said. Things could have gone really, really badly for this girl if it hadn't been for one of the suspects stopping the car to check the tire. When the suspect was checking the tire, Elia ran away into a small group of houses and started screaming. Her kidnappers ran off. The police came, and she was rescued. The police have since put together a case against the 4 people involved in this little kidnapping scheme, and they're hopeful they can put the kidnappers away for good. After all, if this was an ordinary Tuesday night for them, Just imagine how many people they had kidnapped before from nightclubs and forced them into prostitution. And in a seemingly safe part of Texas, no less.
10. Too much protein. Megan Heffert was 25 years old when she died from an overdose of protein. It wasn't that Megan pushed herself too far or ate way too much protein. It was that she had been building up her mass as a bodybuilder while suffering from a disorder that prevented her body from properly processing protein. Because her diet was filled to the brim with protein, her body had a meltdown. The condition is known as urea cycle disorder. Megan, already a mother to 2 children, didn't realize the danger she was putting herself in when she began preparing for a bodybuilding competition in Western Australia. She was gorging herself on a diet of egg whites, protein shakes, and other high-protein foods. She had also started going to the gym regularly, at least twice every day. Throughout all this conditioning, she had no idea that her body was dying. Here's how it works. Megan's body could not break down protein properly, which allowed ammonia to build up in her bloodstream. Ammonia is a waste product, the same product that causes fish tanks to die when there is too much fish poop in the water. This happened to her bloodstream, with ammonia poisoning her brain, leaving her dead just 1 day after doctors realized she had this very rare condition. She was sent to the hospital after being discovered unconscious on the floor of her apartment. By the next day, all brain activity had ceased and she was pronounced dead. 9. Constant sweating. A fitness influencer has died after taking her workout to a rather strange place. Bodybuilder Odilis Santos Mina was fed up with constant sweating. As an extremely popular social media personality focusing on fitness, she hated that she was sweating all the time. It's odd to think about, but apparently in her mind it got in the way of her social media career. To correct this annoying natural feature of her body, she traveled to a Mexican clinic to get a procedure that would stop her from sweating in her armpits. Sadly for her, the procedure went awry. She suffered from cardiac arrest just after being anesthetized. Her family is now suing the clinic in Mexico for negligence. After her death, it was revealed that the clinic had actually paid the bodybuilder to promote the treatment to eliminate sweat glands. The clinic went out of their way to perform the operation on Odilis, and they botched it. Odilis' family is now saying the clinic didn't even have professionals on the scene to perform the surgery. The employee who applied the anesthesia wasn't even trained as an anesthesiast. According to the coroner's report, the death was caused by a combination of the anesthesia and a steroid-like medication that she was taking. In the clinic's defense, they say that Odilis brought the death upon herself because she never told them about the medication that she was on. It mixed badly with the anesthesia and she had a heart attack and died right there on the table. Let that be a lesson to you. If you're going to get a medical procedure done, make sure the people who are performing it are qualified. 8. Dead in the locker room. A family in New Hampshire has sued Planet Fitness following the death of a woman in the gym's locker room. Emily Hamlin, just 22, had been working hard to stay fit, but when another member of the gym saw her collapse in the locker room, things went terribly wrong. The witness ran to the front desk, where she informed the male staff member that Emily was in trouble, but the staff member refused to do anything, saying it was against gym policy for him to walk into the women's locker room. He didn't even phone 911 right away. It wasn't until another staff member arrived at work that the police were phoned and anyone even bothered to check on the unconscious Emily. She had a weak pulse, and when police arrived nearly 30 minutes later, Emily was already dead. There are 2 issues here. First is that Emily was working out too much when she really shouldn't have been. She had an underlying heart condition that nobody knew about until her heart finally gave out after her early morning workout. Second, Emily's family is suing because they say if there had been a female staff member present, or if the male staff member had acted in a more timely fashion, their daughter might still be alive. 7. Fitness test fail. A 19-year-old Marine from New York named Tyrell J. Audan was in the middle of taking his physical fitness test at the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center in California when he suddenly collapsed. Tyrell was a recent graduate from high school and had been an athlete his entire life. He was the definition of physically fit, but unfortunately he was also the latest candidate to drop dead during a military fitness test. According to his service record, Tyrell was attending communications electronics school with the Marine Corps when he died. But as for the cause of death, the Marines have yet to announce that to the public. All we know is that whatever he was doing during the test was so extreme that his body couldn't handle it, and he died. Tyrell also isn't the first person this has happened to. Back in February, Midshipman 3rd Class Duke Carrillo, only 21 years old, collapsed halfway through his physical readiness test at the U.S. Naval Academy. He was only a sophomore, and his official cause of death has also not been released. It's still considered under review. Then there's the case last November when a petty officer died on a treadmill during his physical test at Fort Meade. The public doesn't know exactly what is happening to these guys for them to be dropping dead during their physical test, but it seems the branches of the U.S. military have taken fitness to a new level of danger. 6. Swept out to sea. A Russian fitness coach was washed out to sea when he tried to save a woman who was drowning. His name was Danil Gagarin, and his wife captured the entire thing on video. His wife, Daria, filmed Danil as he jumped into the rough waters near a Spanish resort to save the drowning woman. She then had to watch in horror as her own husband was carried out to sea, where he and the other woman both died. The woman who was drowning was also a fitness coach. She was Emma Mukkonen from Finland. She had jumped off a cliff at the Lazura Cove in Torrevieja, not understanding how dangerous the water was. Despite being in excellent shape, she just couldn't fight the raging sea. Daniil had to jump in to save her. He did manage to bring her up onto a rock sticking out of the water, but then a massive wave came in and swept them both out into the Mediterranean. All the physical fitness in the world couldn't save them from the wrath of Mother Nature. Sadly, Emma's body was recovered way out at sea that day, while Denis wasn't found for another 24 hours. According to the New York Post, both victims were working together at a fitness center on Costa Blanca. Apparently, Emma was a bit of an adrenaline junkie, which is why she made the dangerous jump in the first place. What do you think about this crazy situation? Do you think these people had some kind of superhero complex, thinking they were invincible because they were in such good shape? Or is this just a case of daredevil antics gone wrong? Let us know in the comments. Then, if you like intense videos like this one, be sure to subscribe. 5. Indoor climbing fail. In Colorado, a woman recently plummeted 40 feet, 13 meters to her death. This didn't happen while scaling a mountain or walking precariously along the edge of a cliff. Instead, it happened at an indoor climbing gym. According to Fort Collins Police, the woman was at Ascent Studio Climbing and Fitness when she became detached from her safety system. The investigators didn't find that the equipment was faulty, but she nonetheless somehow became disconnected from the harness. So when she was at 40 feet, 13 meters above the floor, and let go of the wall, rather than gliding gently to the ground, she fell backwards and landed on her head. The investigation is still ongoing, with experts saying indoor climbing gym accidents are incredibly rare. There have only been a handful in the last decade. with the previous one being in 2014 when a man had a similar incident in which he let go of the wall and fell to his death. In these cases, it doesn't matter how fit you are. The ground will always win when you hit it at terminal velocity. 4. The most intense bike class. They say not enough exercise can kill, and whoever says that is completely right. Just ask the woman who didn't exercise for a year and almost died when she attended an indoor cycling class. She went an entire year without running, speed walking, exercising, or doing anything overly physical. But enough was enough. She took herself to the indoor cycling class to get back on the old horse. After the class, she had extremely sore muscles. At the time, she thought it was normal. After all, she hadn't used her legs that extensively in quite some time. But the pain didn't go away. It got worse. After 3 days, her legs were in excruciating pain, and she began to have extremely discolored urine. She compared her urine to Pepsi because it was so dark. But she was so embarrassed that she didn't want to go to the hospital. Instead, she phoned a medical helpline. But the helpline wasn't much help, as she was told that a doctor would call her back maybe in around 8 hours. So she sucked it up and went to the hospital. As it turned out, she had acute kidney damage and something called rhabdomyolysis. If she hadn't gone to the hospital when she did, she would have had renal failure and been on dialysis for the remainder of her life. How did all this happen? She was informed by doctors that because she hadn't exercised for so long and went straight into the most intense workout possible, her body went into shock. Extreme muscle strain caused her kidneys to almost fail, which would have left her seriously ill for the rest of her life. 3. Caffeine toxicity. A 29-year-old personal trainer died after drinking a pre-workout shake. That's because this shake happened to contain somewhere around 200 times more caffeine than what you find in a traditional cup of coffee. Thomas Mansfield was in extremely great shape. He was also a father to 2 children living in the small town of Colwyn Bay in Wales. Before he went to do his workout, he mixed his ordinary workout shake with some extra pre-workout powder. But within minutes, he complained that his heart was racing and he felt sick. He then collapsed in front of his wife, was rushed to the hospital, and died there in the emergency waiting room. An inquest found that he had ingested 5 times the fatal level of caffeine. This meant his death was ruled as caffeine toxicity. How it happened is beyond anyone's understanding. His pre-workout powder shouldn't have contained more than 150 milligrams of caffeine, yet it contained hundreds of times more than that. He didn't mix any more than he usually did. He didn't use anything he hadn't used before. Investigators are still trying to figure out how all that caffeine got into his powder. To be honest, it almost seems as though pure caffeine was put into the powder container by someone who knew an overdose would kill him. But as of right now, there's no proof that that's exactly what happened. 2. Deadly Treadmill. Dave Goldberg was the CEO of SurveyMonkey and the husband of Sheryl Sandberg, Facebook COO. He was worth millions, and like many young, successful millionaires, he was in fantastic shape. He frequently used his treadmill to keep his heart good and strong, but when he was on vacation with his family in Mexico and decided to hop on the treadmill, it proved to be the last thing he would ever do. He fell off the treadmill, cracked his head on the ground, and died from hypovolemic shock. This is when large amounts of blood and fluid are lost from the brain. Basically, he hit his head so hard that it cracked open and all his brain fluid leaked out. For all his millions of dollars, there was nothing anybody could do to save him. According to CNN, this isn't even that rare. Between 2003 and 2012, there were 30 deaths caused by treadmills. In fact, Mike Tyson, the famous boxer, well, his 4-year-old daughter was killed when she accidentally got strangled by a cord connected to a treadmill. And it wasn't even running at the time. 1. Slipped barbell. It may seem impressive to be able to bench 315 pounds, but absolutely nobody is impressed when the barbell slips and crushes your neck. Tragically, this is what happened to Kyle Thompson, just 22 years old. He was at the Elite Edge Transformation Center in Iowa, bench pressing 315 pounds, 140 kilograms. But in a freak accident, the barbell slipped out of his hands, fell on his neck, and left him gasping for air. Kyle was quickly taken to a hospital in Des Moines, but there was nothing they could do to save him. After all, he took 315 pounds of steel straight to his trachea. Imagine getting punched in the neck by a train. That's basically what happened to him. And to make it even more shocking, he had been working out with a spotter. Even the spotter couldn't stop the barbell from hitting Kyle's neck. And if you thought treadmills were dangerous, just listen to these statistics. According to the Center for Injury Research and Policy, between 1990 and 2007, no less than 1 million Americans had to be treated in the emergency room for injuries due to weight training. During that time, 114 people died just trying to lift weights.
Would you rather capture evidence of a mythical creature in real life or discover an entirely new species? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time. Bye!